Hey guys, welcome to my new tutorial. So for this painting we're going to be making a ghost misty autumn painting. So we're going to learn how to paint trees, some autumn leaves, some mist and fog, and also some little Halloween figures such as ghost fabric and other items. So for this you're going to need acrylics and also canvas and rounds and flats brushes as you would normally have. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So you're going to add your cerulean blue plus a little bit of black and white, which is going to create this kind of grayish tone of blue that we're going to put on the top in a curved way. Then just in the center, you're going to be painting more of a white directly in the center. Then just mix that white with the light blue right beside it. And then include a little bit of a darker blue on the sides. So you're going from like light to a medium to a little bit darker. You can go in both directions with the brush, so you can do vertical and horizontal so that you're getting a blend. So right now this is still a wash, so it's a very thin sort of paint. Now I'm going in with some blue black and just mapping in the tree shapes roughly. So I'm going to put those in at the front. And I'm going to go in the background because these are paler trees with some cerulean blue plus black and white, but a paler version. So I'm just going over these shapes. You can use a flat or a round for this, because I'm just roughly putting them in at the minute. So we'll be going back over them later. They will be partially obscured when I go back to do the sky again. And I'm going to put in some more trees in the background just so we see them a little bit smaller in size. I'm using a round brush for these little smaller shapes. You need to press hard and go slow when you want clean lines. So just outlining these little shapes. Doing that for all the trees, so I have a kind of bluish black on those background trees. Just filling this front tree in a little bit darker. I'm going to introduce more white to the center now that it's dried. Give it some time to be totally dry. So more white vertically. It's okay if you cover over your ghosty pal. We're going to put them in later. And now I'm just blending on the side with a dry clean brush. So you want to be blending around and then introducing your next color again, which is your blue mixed with the black and the white in a lighter tone. So I'm just repeating those same colors again. I'm going vertically and I'm also painting horizontally as well. And just introducing more paint. So this is a thicker body of paint, meaning you use a little bit more paint this time. The first round was just a wash, which is a thinner version of the paint with more water. Now I'm going to start to map out some shapes in white. So they're just going to create a cloud-like effect. So I'm just creating some rough wavy shapes right now. And I'm going to do the same with some darks. So I'm going in again with my blues. I'm going to add a little bit more ultramarine mixed in with the cerulean, which makes it a different tone of blue, a little bit of a darker one. And I'm just going to blend wherever I put in these shapes with a dry clean brush. So you create the shapes and then you blur the edges with a dry clean brush, which is exactly what I'm doing. And I'm going in with a lighter blue to create some more shapes. Just going in with some more blues and more whites. So around the blues I'm putting more of the white cloud areas, and then I'm blending again in a circular motion because they're clouds. So dry brushing these circular motion, so your brush is devoid of most paint when you're blending, and I'm also using my fingers just to do a little bit of blending while it's still wet. You have a short time to blend with acrylics, so you do have to work quickly, or of course you can use retarder medium, which will slow down the drying process. So I am just blending with my finger and clean brushes in a circular motion on those edges. So I have the darks, then I have the lights, and I'm blending where they connect. I'm gonna add some more paint here in the center. More whites. So you need several layers, so you're gonna get a smooth blend. Anything that looks like it's not transitioning well, you just need to add more paint. So adding more lights here and there to create some more light effects, blending with a dry brush on my hand. I tend to use my hands a lot in my paintings. It's just handy. They're right there. You just have to be gentle when you're blending. Going in with some more darks, more of a darker blue. And blending that again with a clean brush. Blending. Working on my mid areas, so my transitions. So you have your darks, you have your lights, and you want some medium colors in between those. Then to blur it all, I let it dry and added a quick white throughout the entire background. So a thin white with a large brush across the whole thing, which creates a glaze effect, which is what you're seeing here. So this blurs it out, makes it more one area. And now I'm going back in to redarken the things I feel are a little bit too blurred. So I want to darken them again and just make them a little bit more visible. So that can happen when you're glazing. You're like, want to pare it back a little bit or increase the contrast, which is something I'm going to do. But glazing is good to get that unity. So I'm just increasing the darks and some lights in the areas. A little bit more whites here and there. Just blending them with my hand or with a clean brush in a circular motion. Need to be gentle with it. You'll notice it's a lot softer since the glaze has been applied, which blurs everything out. So again, it's transparent, it's a thin body of paint, that white glaze, which you don't apply until the painting's totally dry. Now I'm going in to darken my trees again because I'm now more finished with my background. Well, we'll go back to do a little bit on it, but I want to just reintroduce these shapes in a more solid format, so getting more definite shapes. So make sure that you have your brush, your round brush. You want to press hard and go slow. Continuously get the paint and continuously make sure you have enough paint and a little bit of water to help it move. You don't want too much water because then it's going to drip on you, and you don't want too thick of paint so you're getting lumps. So just something that's going to run smooth for you. So just outlining these shapes. They don't have to be the very, very same as these. They are just roughly curvy type shaped trees. Meant to be more spooky. Just keep adding more body to these trees so that you can see them a little bit better. So the ones in the background, more cerulean blue mixed with a little bit of black and white, and the ones in the front, more of a black mixed with cerulean blue, but also with a darker blue as well. So a little bit of ultramarine in these front trees. And my back trees, I'm just creating smaller shapes that come off the main branches. So you need these thicker shapes coming into something more pointy. And I'm just going to bring in the base into some roots. So just painting in this whole area a little bit thicker and filling in any parts of the sky which don't reach down yet. And on the trees, you want to identify a dark side and a light side and create some lines so you get the idea of the texture of the wood. Use a really small brush so you can get these small pointed stick lines. So blend with a dry, clean brush. So I'm just trying to create some lines and also go in to create some light on one side and some dark on another side. So these front trees I want to be significantly darker so that we have something to focus on. So a little bit of that dark blue black, then a lighter version right beside it, adding more cerulean and a little bit of white. Going in with some of those medium darks to create some lines. Then going in with something lighter and adding lines. And then it's a matter of using another brush to blend with. So blend those lines while they're still wet, blur them slightly on the sides, which means they fade together a little bit more. And you can add some details like holes in the tree, little grasses, and things like this. Just adding some lines in the trees. And dark side. I want to add some brightness to the front trees because these are like the main two trees. So I want highlights, very definite highlights. And a little bit more lights in some of the other trees too. And I'm just blending where it touches the medium blue and then adding some dark lines also. Now I'm painting in my cat. So I'm just going to go with a general little overall shape for now, and I'll add some more light colors in after. So right now it's just a base of black, then going in with more of a gray tone, so just a little bit of white and a little bit of blue into the cat too. And I outline the skull area and just fill in the rest of this tree root. So just fill in all those areas, don't miss any part of the canvas, and just putting in some highlights. Create those lines and blur them at the edges. The tone of this depends on how you want it to be. It can be darker in tone, or you can have it more bluish if you wish. So I'm going to start indicating some autumn leaves now. I'm going in with a direct orange, so just creating some general shapes, just using the tip of the brush. It's a round brush, just dabbing it and creating little shapes. So some individual leaves and then some groupings of leaves, so like 3 or 4, and just placing it carefully so there's not too many. And they should look like they're almost falling down. You can have a couple of loose leaves which are falling, so we get the idea of the autumn season. And then just gonna fill in this floor in a similar manner. So I'm just creating oval shapes, piles of leaves. I'm starting with oranges. And because they're going over blues, they are going to dry a little bit darker. Then in the background, a more yellow type of orange. Adding a few more on the left side. The amount is really up to you, but I am going to fill the floor. So in between the leaves is going to be browns. So you mix your orange with a little bit of brown tone, and I'm going to go around these leaf shapes so that we get a filled in leaf floor. And then I'm blending just where those browns and oranges meet. So right now they're not discernible as leaves, they're just like little shapes. But you get the idea that they're breaking up into smaller little shapes without having too much leaf detail yet. Now I'm adding a little mist effect. So a little bit of orange mixed in with those whites. And I'm just going to fill in a circular motion, which is something we need for the fog. A little bit more white and blending that. I'm going to outline my shape of my ghost. And just get a little bit of browns and a little bit of black into these lines. Just define them. The creases of the clothing. I'm going in with some yellows now mixed with white as a base. Just to get the overall shape. So I've put in my dark lines so I don't lose them, and then I'm going around with my lighter lines. I'm going to put in this dark sleeve and increase the darks. Now I'm going to blend a little bit. Blend these darks in so they look slightly purplish mixed with the yellow. And just outlining the hat shape, which is going to be purple in tone. So going in with some purples, I'm just putting a base in. And a base orange onto the pumpkin. A little bit of some skull details. Outline the hat again with some darker purple. And put some more black into this sleeve. Elongate it slightly. Adding more leaf foliage at the front area. More oranges. And just filling in the rest of that in shadow, so some browns and blacks. And blending where those darks connect with those oranges. Putting in some browns in the back area also, but they're lighter browns because they have more yellow in them. So we get that aspect of it getting lighter as you go further back, which gives us a sense of perspective and distance. So I'm going in to highlight some more individual shapes now at the front, because this is where the focus is going to be. So we take our time with some oranges and yellows, and I'm picking particular points that are going to be more highlighted, and then I blend those in with a clean brush. I'm doing the same in the middle, just creating more individualized shapes. You can look closely at leaf shapes to give you an idea, or just go with curved shapes or three-pointed leaves, depending what sort of autumn leaves you want to go with. Just blending in between. More yellows in the back leaves. A little touch of yellow here and there in the middle parts. So they're a mix of browns, yellows, oranges, and reds. Just getting some highlighted leaves up front. Mixing some white in with those yellows for brighter tones. because as acrylics dry, they dry darker. So you're always going to have to add a little bit more body and some more highlights because they will sink into the painting a little bit. You don't have the same real change with oils. It's just with acrylics, they do tend to dry just a little bit darker. I'm just creating these shadows around these more individualized shapes up the front so you can see them more clearly. And a little bit in this midsection, increasing those darks for contrast. Some more brown blacks, a little bit more orange highlights, and blending with a clean brush. And take your time with this step of the process. They can be more blurred. They don't have to be in hyper detail. Depends on the level of realism you want to go with. I'm going with a level of realism, more expressive realism, as I like to say, because this is meant to be a quicker style painting. Otherwise, I would be going very detailed on each one of these leaves. Now into the trees themselves, they need some darker tones also, so they're not just orange. So I'm putting in some browns and a little bit of reds. And if you do feel like you've overdone the leaves, you can always go back and put in some more blue branches, which is what I'm doing here for this tree. I just want to reduce the amount, although I do want this area to have more leaves, just not quite as many. I'm just going around creating some branches. And now I'm putting a glaze over some of the leaves themselves because I don't want them as prominent. I want them more faded, which means mixing that blue and white with some water so it's transparent and see-through. You can also add acrylic medium to it, which will make it thinner. Same idea. But for right now, I'm just adding very simply some water to it to make them fade away a little. I'm going to increase the darkness on the roots at the very, very base, which is going to be the darkest area of the tree. And just making sure that I have significant highlights as well. So light parts of the trees. And adding these brighter colors at the two front trees because they're the main trees. So I'm going to go in with more yellows and then go around them with some browns to define the shapes a little bit more clearly at the front. So I'm increasing the amount of paint on those, putting some more highlights, blending. No, on my pumpkin I need to do a second coat. I might even do a third coat, just depends on how thick you need it. And now I'm adding some lines to get that texture of the pumpkin. So it goes down, 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 and it's curved. Adding some slightly brownish tones to the orange, and then a little bit of highlights in the center with more yellow orange. And then creating that little stem shape at the top. Go in again at the lines, add more brown at the base. Make sure that you can see the lines, but also blending them with a clean brush so they are slightly more faded. Just adding another coat to the purple hat. Slightly more purple. And defining the shape. One side of the hat is going to be a little bit darker with more black. And one side of the hat a little bit more of a highlighted purple with some more whites. You want to rest your hand on the canvas when you're doing these sort of detailed things and make sure it's dry so that you're able to control your wrist to get these small shapes. And the brown belt, and I'm going to add one black line to the bottom. And then the buckle for the little witch's hat. I have the square shape in silver, so black and white, and then just a little highlight area with some white. If you find this difficult, you can always leave it till the end and go in with pen instead. If you have a white gel pen, that is handy to use for those little highlight areas. And adding some eyes. The expression is up to you. I just want going with more whimsical, animated type of eyes. You can keep it more spooky with the expression if you want. And then going in with some more darks into the fabric lines and some lights as well. So pure white. Adding these highlights. Just fixing the shape, making sure I'm happy with it. Adding more lines for more creases. One arm slightly darker. So putting in those lines and then blurring them a little bit at the edge, not getting rid of them, but softening them. And at the base, I'm going to add more of a black line. Filling in this side. Adding some more whites. So it's several layers of paint. So you place them beside each other and then just make sure they're transitioning evenly. Go back and forth until you find that balance. Blurring in some lines. Some lines are more crisp and prominent. Blending. Filling in these darks a little bit. A little bit of gray inside the sleeve, so it fades from dark to a more gray tone and some whites around it. Again, just going in with a clean brush to blend some of these lines that I've put in. So it's just a small round brush that I'm blending with. And I keep cleaning my brush, so dabbing it on some tissue or a rag so it doesn't keep picking up too much pigment. Just highlighting the pumpkin a little bit with some more orange yellow. Then I'm going to go around the cat so we can see the shape of the cat and just make sure the tree is light enough behind it so that we can see the shape. So a little bit more gray tones. Into some skull details, so some eyes and nose, and just creating this jawline and a mouth. A little bit of highlights on the side, and creating more shadow with the grays, blending that, and more whites. Go in with those highlights and blend them. Going to create some teeth shape a little bit later. Just want to get the overall shape in. So the eye expression is up to you. Depends if you want it more whimsical or more horror-esque. I'm just putting in some teeth details. Some of the finer details I'm going to do in pen, just because it's such a small shape. And now on the fog, I'm going to be increasing the orange and yellow mist. Then at the edges, I'm blending it with my finger. You can also use a clean brush, but I want it to look more transparent. So I'm using this tiny amount of it just to blur the edges. And then where the ghost is standing, adding a little bit amount of black, which creates a gray shadow. So just blending, blurring those edges. So we get the idea that it's transparent. A little bit more orange tone. And a circular motion. I'm going to glaze again because I want more of a balance and some more fog going on. So my glaze is, again, it's just a transparent layer of paint. So mixing white with a little bit of water, and I'm going back and forth, crisscrossing. And you can use your tissue or your rag if you feel like it's too much on one area. Use it quickly though, because it does dry quickly. And be careful not to get it on areas you don't want it on, that you don't want to blur. And just be wary of how much water you're using. You can also use medium, as I said, to help the paint move. I'm just going to go back and forth, creating this glaze on all these areas. Super important that everything is dry, because if anything is in any way wet, it will blur and ruin your painting. You don't want that. So wait until everything is dry before you're doing this glaze. Just make sure you can touch it or use a hairdryer if you need to speed up the process. Use tissue if you need to, if there's too thick of paint anywhere. A little bit more transparent fog. Just going around these two front trees because I want the back trees to be more transparent, and then the middle area to be a lot more white. Let's increase the amount of white I have there. And in the center, glaze. So crisscrossing there. And I'm going to bring that fog in on the leaves also. And just remove some with the tissue if it's too much. Just crisscrossing, going back and forth. It's transparent, see-through, not too much body. Carefully going around the things that I do want to keep. And just adding more on areas where it's not even. A little bit more white just around the ghost itself, so we get that glow. And a little bit more circular whites to the front mist. That balance is just a back and forth that you need to check that your paint is sitting right. I'm just going to add a little bit more blue to these areas because they need a little bit more. So white is a little bit heavy for them on those areas. And I'm going to increase again on these brighter tree areas. I'm going to add a couple of falling leaves, more pigmented. Now I'm going in with my pen, little gel pen for the cat eyes. And then I'm going to go in with black on the ghost eyes just to make them super clear. A little bit around the hat. A little bit on the pumpkin to create the pumpkin shape. So we have the traditional face shape on the pumpkin, triangular nose and eyes, and mouth. So make sure everything is dry when you're leaning on the canvas. I think I'm going to add a little bit more highlights here and there on the side. And that is the last thing that we're going to be doing. So our finished piece here, we have a little black line on our cat eyes, and we also have some highlights on our skull, just some little pen details, small final details, and a nose. So that is everything that we're going to do today in our autumn painting. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know in the comments if there's anything you'd like to see next.